I'm wrestling, do not weep for me. Celebrate what I am. Celebrate what I have been. Celebrate what I represent. And celebrate the many ways I have impacted your life. I will survive this test as I have survived others. I am forever etched into the very fiber of all mankind. The world needs me. Time is on my side. History guarantees me. I am wrestling. Do not wait for me.
What's up, everybody? This is the T-Row and Funky Show, episode number 11. We made it this far, and we're still kicking butt. This is your man, Ben Askren, along with Tommy Rollins. We are brought to you as always by Defense Soap. Defend what you have built. And they were a great sponsor of our tournament last weekend. Tommy, people loved the Defense Soap. And then we're also brought to you by All Force Nutrition. Remember, you can go to their website, use the coupon code FUNKY, and get 20% off any product. So thank you to our sponsors for making this free to all of our listeners. And Tommy, I was told by someone in the know that we are already up to the second highest rated amateur wrestling podcast.
Amateur sports podcast, I thought, or something like that.
Okay. You know what? My wife.
We got to get some verification on that with our fact check guy. Something like, yeah.
My wife, I thought she'd be proud of me. I said, honey, we're already up to the number 2 spot in amateur wrestling. And she goes, there's another amateur wrestling podcast?
Oh, God. You know what's worse?
Damn it, honey.
My wife hasn't even listened to an episode.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know. It's just whatever.
Hey, I thought it would be good. We haven't even talked about what we're going to talk about, so let's just get it kicked off. I thought it'd be good to talk about Dave Schultz, since it's the 20 years of his passing, and your company, Rudis, features a lot of his gear and has a lot of really cool Dave Schultz stuff. I remember I would have been 11 years old, and I wasn't like super into wrestling. I was getting there, but I still remember where I was. I remember it was at the Oconomowoc Youth Wrestling Tournament, and they announced that Dave Schultz had passed, and they did a moment of silence. And that's weird that sticks with me, because it's not like I knew who Dave Schultz was at that time or had any relationship with him. Do you remember where you were at by any chance?
Yeah, I was watching CNN, and obviously I was only 14 years old, so CNN was on, and the headline came across, and my dad, who's a wrestling coach and fan, jumped out of his chair because it was the first news he had, and I saw his reaction. And I knew the name Dave Schultz at the time, but because of that headline, he explained to me who Dave Schultz was. And that was the first time someone ever explained to me his status in the wrestling community, even though I'd heard the name. And from there, I got to learn about Dave Schultz. But yeah, it's like, I think a lot of people would be able to say, I remember where I was when I found out about Dave Schultz. So yeah, sad day, but it's 20 years since his passing. And, I am happy to not to do any self-promotion. We try not to do that on this show, Ben. I think we do a good job.
Hit it up.
We do a good job with it. Yeah, I'm very proud of the fact that Nancy Schultz has given our company, and she's now our partner, but a vote of confidence that she thinks we can honor Dave's legacy in a way that makes her proud and makes Xander proud and their daughter Danny proud. And so we just try to do the best that we can in doing that, and just very proud to be associated and privileged to promote Dave Schultz. I think he transcends sport, probably unlike any other wrestling name or legend that's ever participated in our sport. So
yeah, and so why do you think that is? I mean, from what I gathered, like I said, I was 11 years old at the time, right?
Yeah.
But I have spent a lot of time in the sport and talked to a lot of people of that era, and for me, the way it seems why he's so looked up to in that way is he just got along with everybody. And there, wrestling community has a lot of factions, and people don't like each other. In Iowa, Oklahoma State, they're rivals. Yep. But it seemed that Dave got along with everybody for some reason. I mean, it was his personality, whatever it was, he was magnetic. But is that what it seems to you, Tommy? Or
to me, yeah. To me, he comes across as the most likable person that anybody who's ever interacted with him has come across. And so, yeah, he was an Olympic champion, vicious on the mat, but just had a really fun-loving, gregarious personality where he always lifted everyone up that he was around. And that's just globally, not just American wrestling. So I think that's probably the thing that stands out. I think he was just he was his true self, and he brought everyone up around him and made them feel better about themselves. And when you get around somebody like that, it doesn't take very much to really look up to them and want to be around them. And I think that's probably the thing that separates him. If I had to guess, I never got to meet him though. I was 15 when he passed. So
yeah, and that's kind of. I mean, the other thing that he struck me as, so one of the reasons I looked up to him, I guess, would be just a technical wizard and an innovator, which I think that's kind of common knowledge around him. Mm-hmm. But with me, I wasn't a great athlete by any sense of the imagination, so I had to kind of develop that unique style for myself. And I think the same can be said for Dave a little bit. I don't think he was a great athlete by any sense of the imagination, but he definitely was a technical wizard. He was very innovative for his time period, and he made it work for himself. Obviously, NCAA champ, world champ, multiple times. So that's kind of I think what I took from. I watched a lot of his film.
Yeah,
that's what I took from him.
Me too. I think he's a technical wizard. I think he just looked at the sport through a lens that not many people see it in. I think he's the type of guy that would sit around on the mat after practice and be like, hey, when you get in this position, what do you think? What do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And what do you think of this? And this is when he's at the Olympic level. And I've heard, firsthand stories of people that just said he looked at wrestling through a lens that not many people saw. I think that it's easy, especially in the college wrestling landscape, to just look at the sport like I gotta attack both sides of the body, get out from the bottom, and have a turn and hold people down when I have to, and that'll win a title. And I think Dave Schultz was like, he viewed wrestling as a canvas, and so there's a lot of reasons. It's hard to put into words, I think. I mean, even the people that know him personally, when they try to explain him, they always feel like they're not doing it justice.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Well, cool. Well, Dave Schultz, you're the man. I wish I would have got to met you because I think
no kidding.
Possibly kindred spirits.
I think so, Ben. I think you guys would have got along real well.
I would have hoped so. Maybe learned a handful of things from him. But so let's move on. And you know what? What something you were saying there in that last little paragraph, Tommy. And I brought this up last week, but I watched Nolf and Imar, which we have to talk about, and Nickel and Brunson, and Penn State just flows through these positions better than any other team in NCAA wrestling right now. I mean, it's freaking outstanding.
Yeah. No, I mean, first of all, I don't think Nolf listened to our scouting report on Imar because he couldn't have gave a you-know-what about the fact that Imar's undefeated and just wrestled phenomenal. I'm sure we'll get to that. But to the point you're making, I completely agree. Penn State is wrestling great right now. They look like the best team in the country, and they wrestle from one skill, one sequence to the next. They're never really – the only thing that's methodical about them is that they're always on the attack, and that's impressive to me.
Yeah, definitely. And there's such a comfort level.
Yep.
And it's not even like I can pinpoint one thing. I can just tell when Nolf gets in a scramble or when Nickel gets in a scramble. When these guys get in scrambles, they're just comfortable. They're at home, and that's how you need to be to win those positions. And like the Nickel Brunson match, Brunson just kind of stopped it, and you get those things when you scramble enough. You'll get those opportunities, and it was kind of it's just a stupid place to stop, and no real reason, and then Nickel ends up with him on his back and sticks him, and that's. But Penn State is just wow. I mean, and that's kind of what Taylor and Ruth always did, but now it's more and more and more of them are just flowing. So Kale's doing something special there. I don't know what Kale's doing, but it's pretty impressive.
Well, the way that they're wrestling, you can tell that's how they train. I mean, they're out there. It's so second nature to them that they're not turning it up. It's not like they're gamers per se. I just think they practice every day. There's guys scrambling all over the place, taking shots everywhere, and it just becomes second nature to you. And yeah, he's doing something right. I mean, Rutherford, Nolf, Nickel, Megaludis, gosh, McIntosh looks really good. Just the list goes on. They're wrestling like the best team in the country right now. I don't think anybody could refute that.
Yeah. So what do you think about Imar Nolf? So I'll be honest. I thought it was 4 Central, and we had our big tournament on Sunday. So I was headed out to the academy for weigh-ins, and I was going to get there at 4 o'clock. And I was going to get to about 3:45. I figured I'd turn on the duel, and I'd get to watch the match. And then all of a sudden, 3:30, my phone starts lighting up. I'm like, what? What the heck? And so I realized it was 4 Eastern. I'm an idiot. But I did get to watch the match. And to me, it looked like Imar was just trying to force stuff. He didn't look good. He looked like he tried to force a lot of things early, and it made him tired, and he gassed out, which I don't know that I've seen him do that before.
It looks like he had an out-of-body experience, honestly. I mean, and I don't mean that in a good way. It looked like he was just completely out of the frame of mind that he's been in ever since I started watching him wrestle that closely. And he just seemed completely out of sorts. And so I think that is part of the reason why he got whipped on. And the other part is that Jason Nolf is a freaking hammer.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when I make that comment, are probably saying, well, you didn't know that? It's like, well, I knew he was good. He's a freshman, ranked third. I knew he deserved the ranking. But
yeah,
I didn't know the kid could go get points like that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's Imar. I was trying to explain this to someone. Someone who wrestling, I was trying to explain this, Tommy, is it wasn't like Isaiah came in a weak weight class last year and went undefeated. I mean,
it wasn't like he squeaked by either.
No.
He went out there and smashed people.
Yeah, and if you threw up a list, if I said, Tommy, let's make a list of the best guys never win NCAA title. When we make that list to start out with, Dylan Ness's name is probably getting on the list. James Green's name is probably on the list.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's not like these guys were scrubs by any means.
James Green got a world bronze medal in the offseason.
That was a freaking legitimate bracket. And like you said, it wasn't like he was going and squeaking out matches. I mean, he might have had 3 or 4 close matches the whole season.
Right.
So, so people can say they think no.
So I think Imar went out there for the big move. Not only did he not get it, but he had to work really hard.
Yeah.
With the end result being a takedown against him. And I think from that point on, the demons crawled into his mind, and it's happened to the best of us. At least I can admit that it's happened to me a lot more than it's happened to Imar. And the demons crawled in his mind and they started talking to him. Mm-hmm. And they said, today's not your day. And he couldn't put them to bed. He couldn't put them to sleep. And that's what it looked like to me. And Jason, is it Jason Nolf?
Yeah, Jason Nolf.
He's an animal. I mean,
the other thing is, Tommy, he lost to a high schooler last summer, and you could say it's freestyle, and you could say it's Mark Hall. I don't give a damn. No. Isaiah whooped up on James Green and Dylan Ness, and you lost to a high schooler. So, I mean, for those people who said, I knew Nolf was going to be... No, you didn't. Nolf lost to a high school kid last year.
I think Nolf was probably the only guy that thought he was going to win on Sunday. I will give Nolf credit, though. He really, if he's fooling me, if he looks like he expected to win.
Yeah,
and
David Taylor thought he was going to win too. I harassed David for a prediction, and David said Jason's going to win.
Yeah, but David's a Penn State homer. Like I'm a high. Sometimes I don't speak the 100% truth in my heart. I just can't. So I'm not sure if David really meant that. I did see him tweet it though. I did see it. I saw him tweet it before the match started. So, anyways, yeah, I think Jason Nolf. I mean, I didn't know he was that good. I'm sold now.
So rematch, Big Ten. Who you pick?
Well, I take Imar, but I don't take Imar by the same margin that I predicted Imar going into that match. I mean, I thought it was going to get 4 takedowns riding time and control the. I take Imar. I think Imar has a little bit more to give. A lot bit more to give than he showed, and I would take Imar, but not in a way that's like, it was not a fluke. Jason Nolf 100% deserved that win. He took it to him. That win is his. You can't take it back. But I still take Imar. What about you?
I'm gonna go with just about exactly what you said.
Right.
Yeah, I think same thing. You want to move on to Missouri, Oklahoma State? As painful as it's going to be for me.
Yeah, and then see Piles just freaking slamming on us.
Dude, he's full of crap. He didn't call nothing. I said, Missouri will beat NC State. I never said anything about Oklahoma State, and then Piles said, "See, duels aren't as easy." And I said, and he posted where I said they beat NC State.
Well,
and I said, I don't see what your point is.
Well, his point was that his point is trying to say that it was his opinion, and what we were trying to say is because he's saying, well, it looks like I'm right now. Well, it's not supposed to be about your opinion.
Yeah.
So at the time, I thought you were 100% correct, Ben. And now you're not.
And the thing is, though, Tommy, with duels, you got to let me have my say, of course. With duels,
but you're not.
It's a matchup issue. I said they could beat NC State, which NC State's a damn good team. They just kicked North Carolina's butt last night. And we're going to see in a couple weeks when they face off against each other. But the fact of the matter is, Missouri lost 4 matches by 5 points. They score 8 more points and they win the duel. I mean, it's as simple as that. You know, they lose double OT at 125. They lose a questionable takedown call, and they lose 4-2 at 33. They lose by a point at 41. They lose by a point at 65.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing that C. Piles alluded to, in my opinion. Now, it's 140 characters, and I've never had a verbal conversation.
160. It's 160, I think.
160, whatever. but I think, you know, what he said was, what he implied on Twitter was, what I said 6 weeks ago, turns out I was right. And it's like, what are you telling me, that you were rubbing the 8 ball, or are you telling me that at the time NC State should have been ranked higher than Missouri? I don't believe that to be true at the time. After Vegas. And you know what? Only me, you, and C. Piles know the specifics of the story, so we should probably stop talking about it. But anyways, long story short, he's right now, Ben. I mean, you got to give it to NC State having the ranking and the fact that, you know, Oklahoma, they won, and they won handily. So score's the score, and I think it is what it is, man. I gotta tell you.
I'll throw C. Piles under the bus anytime I get the chance. So let's go here. So I said the result, we lost by 1 point at 65, which actually I think is a very positive result. And Daniel Lewis, this guy is a freaking leech. He rode Bojo for 4 minutes straight.
Yeah.
He just rode Derringer for 4 minutes straight. And he's a freshman. Freshmen don't ride, not supposed to ride like that.
No, I think it's a very positive sign. And I think, you know what, that the thing is when you're as dominant as Derringer is and you win by 1 point, it doesn't mean that you're not going to dominate everybody, because he's pretty dominant, but it just lets other guys, oh wow, I can do it, you know. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're giving all these other guys hope. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. You got to crush their souls, Tommy. I tell some of my wrestlers, you got to beat them so bad.
You sound like an Iowa guy, Ben.
They don't beat people bad anymore. You have to beat people so bad that they never wake up thinking they can beat you again. Then your life becomes easy.
Hey, we've all been there. You've beaten somebody bad. You know this has happened. Maybe you won't admit it, but you've beaten somebody bad before, and then the next match you beat them by like 2, and you know that you let them back in mentally.
I don't think so.
Oh,
that never happened to me.
That's happened to me.
I swear to God,
a bunch of times.
Never happened.
I've whipped on a guy, and then I'll wrestle him again.
Who? I want to know.
Okay, a good example is Pat Cummins. When I
can't believe you let him beat you.
When we wrestled 13 times. I beat him 11, but the first 3 or 4 times I beat him by like 12 or 13 points, and he kept getting better for sure.
Yeah.
But the second I wrestled a bad match and he wrestled a good match, and maybe it was just because he got better, but I only beat him by like 2. Every match after that was a war.
Yeah.
Because I think he just said, I can do it now. I thought I could do it. Now I know I can do it. And you just can't let people into that space. If you feel like you're better, you've got to continue to widen the gap. You've got to continue to dominate, so to speak. If you're 7 points better than the guy, then beat him by 7.
Yeah. Because
the second you decide to put on the gas brake or put on the brakes and only beat him by 2, you let him in mentally, and you make that 3-day tournament, the third weekend in March, that much tougher for you.
Yep, and that's it. That's what it makes your life hard, right?
Right.
If every person you wrestle fights you as hard as you can, your life's hard, right?
Right.
But if a few of them, they go out there and they're going to roll over because they know they ain't got no hope, and you're just going to beat their ass,
right?
Then your life becomes easy, and that's kind of so.
I used to hate is that I had a good rivalry with Mako, and I mean we would I'd be ranked 1 and he'd be ranked 2, or he'd be ranked 1 and I'd be ranked 2, and this dude would tech and pin everybody because he had a fear factor with all these guys. And then I'd beat him by like 3, the same guy. And I'm like, I'm in a freaking fist fight with all these guys. And then I go out there and wrestle Mako, and it's always double OT, one guy or the other. But then he wrestles the other opponents, and he's pinning them.
Yeah, you know what? A funny story about that is we had a freshman from Wisconsin on my team at Missouri. I want to say I was a sophomore, I think. Because I think it was the year I lost to Pendleton by 1 point in ride time. And we brought him out as a true freshman because our starter got hurt. And I remember on the bus ride home, after he got pinned by Mako in about 27 seconds or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember him telling a bunch of the other guys on the team that he had never been so scared in his life as when he's standing across the mat
See,
And
now that
it was,
just
it was
snaps.
the it was the Darth Vader theme
That just
as
snaps.
Mako comes into Gallagher, Iowa, and he goes, "I have never been so scared in my life."
What's he gonna do to you? He's gonna wrestle you. What's he gonna do to you? He's gonna
And then
wrestle
he
you.
got pinned in 27 seconds.
You know, this ties in with the face mushing too. Did you see that debate on the
No,
internet?
what's face mushing?
Well, you know, a lot of people in the forums are complaining about the Iowa, what's his name, Gilman, smashing someone's face in the mat as you stand up after a win.
Is it prior to the whistle or after the whistle?
After the whistle,
I
and
think
the match,
that's crap,
and the match is over.
Yeah, that's crap.
It's so lame.
I feel like if you want to smash their face during the match, you got 7 good minutes to smash them as good as you want. Because you can't punch them in wrestling, but you can do a lot of rough stuff to them.
Yeah.
So
The other thing is, it's like, Ben, if someone smushed your face in the mat after they beat you by 1, do you feel like are they getting the mental edge over you?
No,
It's
feel like they're a
laughable.
dick.
It's laughable.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, it's just pointless. And I personally, yeah, I think people are getting out of hand about it on the forums and stuff. But I think there's no place for it in wrestling. I think it should be unsportsmanlike conduct, guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what? What, man? You're a moron. There's a team point. Don't do it again. Don't. Just think if 2 basketball players in the NBA game, as time expires and the game ends, LeBron James just puts the palm of his hand in Steph Curry's face and just shoves it for 3 inches and just says, "Good game, man," and shoves him in the face. I mean, it's pointless. There's no place for it.
Yeah.
It means nothing. Control yourself. Learn how to control yourself. Don't say it was the heat of the moment and I'm a competitor and blah 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 blah.
That was a good impression, Tommy.
If you don't like it, then do something about it. Yeah, as I'm on the bottom taking a loss after a hard fought match, I should watch out for you face smushing me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. There's no place for it in my opinion.
Yeah, I would actually, you know what, Tommy? I would do it during the match. And my purpose for it, and I did all kinds of, sometimes I'd whisper to people so they got pissed. My point was, I wanted them to get pissed off enough to do something stupid to make the pin really easy. And it happened a lot of times. I'll tell you a good one. I was in line at National Duels with Brandon Mason, and he always stalled his butt off against me. And I always, I majored him, but it was like I had to work hard to major him, So I'm in line, and he's standing behind Johnny Hendricks. He doesn't want to, we're next, or the teams are lined up by weights, right? But he's kind of standing behind Johnny Hendricks. So as soon as Johnny Hendricks steps off the scale, I'm right next to Brandon, right? And I said, "Brandon, are you actually going to wrestle me today, or are you just going to run away like a little girl?"
Oh, my God.
And he goes, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, are you going to wrestle me today, or are you going to run away like a little girl?" He goes,
"Oh, my gosh.
I'm going to wrestle you." And then guess what, Tommy? I got his head. First takedown, steps his leg up like a dummy, cradle, pin in less than a minute.
There you go, baby.
So I would use those tactics during the matches to try to get my opponents to do something stupid to which I could capitalize on. But once the whistle blows, it's over. Forget about it.
Yeah, and I get it. And listen, I've done the face smush. I've been face smushed. And I've done
Stop calling it face smush. You gotta have a better name. That just sounds ridiculous.
I'm just
sounds like
following,
what you do with your girlfriend. Like
I'm following I'm following the World Wide Web nomenclature of what this is. It's the face smush or whatever.
No, and then can we make a better name for it right now?
What do you want to call it?
I don't know. Face mashing.
Face mash.
Face mush. Face mush. That sounds like something, you cuddle up with your girlfriend and you mush faces or something, like I don't think it gives justice to what's actually happening.
So dumb though to do it. It's just, anyways. If my son's a 6-year-old, if I caught him face mashing a guy as he wins, I'd freak him throw him in the backseat of the car and say, "You don't ever do that to somebody that decided to wrestle you ever again."
Yeah.
And I'm not. I did it. I've done it before, but it's in defense.
Did you do it after the whistle?
Yeah, probably not as bad as Gilman. I probably have, but
what was the moment in wrestling you lost your cool the most? Maybe did something you shouldn't have.
Oh man, in a match or in practice? Because practice I've done some.
No, practice doesn't count.
I've done some really rated R things in practice.
Practice doesn't count. Match only.
Oh man, in a match. Nothing other than going to blows with, almost going to blows with somebody, wanting to punch him in the face and getting in a big shoving match. I know Mako and I in the Midlands finals, he tried to scratch my eyeballs.
Oh, come on.
Fingernails.
Steve
And I
wouldn't do that.
freaking lost my mind and stood up and
Like from top, he was on top or where?
no, I
were
was
you
in on a high
neutral?
crotch. I was in on a high crotch.
Oh man.
As the match was ending and he won by 1 point and he tried to dig his fingernails in my eyeballs and I lost my mind. So I lost my mind. We'll have to dig up the film and share.
Yeah. That's
So anyways, yeah, that was
fair reason. You know,
What about you?
taking
What about you? I saw you. Well, let me tell you this. I saw you wrestle Blake Maurer at Ohio State, and he was not doing much on bottom.
Yeah.
And I take both hands off and make like a Superman airplane position to the ref to let him know that even with no arms, he was not trying to get up. I saw you kind of lost your mind there.
Yeah, I was whispering in his ear like, he's going to lay down there like a little, or you're going to try to do something. And he wouldn't get up, so then I had to take my arms off him, you know. Because it's really hard to pin a person when they're just curled up like a turtle. Yeah, I mean, Tommy, I can't remember. I remember one time Tyrone Lewis, because I always think when someone else loses their cool, if you lose your cool back, they got you kind of, you know?
Right.
And I remember I cracked Tyrone Lewis one time at the U.S. Open. So in '08, I cracked him hard. And this guy knew it'd piss him off, you know? And he goes, it was right there the first. I won 2-0, I think. I cracked him hard. And he goes, ooh, you want to take this to the parking lot? And I said, just give me another 2 minutes, let me beat you, and then we'll take it to the parking lot.
Oh, my gosh.
And I knew he was broken, Tommy. I broke him.
Right.
I mean,
right.
so, but, yeah, I can't think of a good time in a match, but like you said, in practice, I remember one time I tried snapping Max's arm.
Yeah, I don't even want to share the things that I've done in the practice. It's just not. It's not.
It's almost embarrassing.
Yeah, it is, and
Yeah.
the practice room is really where some goofy stuff happens, in my opinion.
Well, you know, it's set up, you know, like the time I'm thinking about, it's situations where it's set up to break you, if you will, you know, that wrestling terminology. And then the situation I'm thinking about, it was this live thing where you had to get 7 takedowns, 7 escapes, and 7 rideouts. Okay? But the deal was it was shark bait, so 2 people were coming in on you. And if you only had 20 seconds to get the takedown. So if you didn't get it in 20 seconds, nothing counted, you know? Mm-hmm. And, hold on, I'm going to click Andy and I'll finish the story.
Okay.
What's up, Andy?
Hello?
What's up, man?
Not much. How you doing, Ben?
Good. Tommy's on the line, too.
What's up, Andy?
Not much. How are you, Tommy?
I'm
Good.
great, brother.
I'm going to finish the story about how I snapped in practice one time, and then maybe you can give us one of your best practice snapping stories. How's that sound?
Oh, that sounds good. I was just talking about this week.
Okay. So Tommy, it was this game where you had to get 7 takedowns, 7 rideouts, and 7 escapes. But you had to get them in 20 seconds. And if you didn't get it in 20 seconds, it didn't count, you know, and then you just had to keep going and going and going and going until you got it. And I remember I got to the 6th takedown, and it was Coach Horton and it was my brother. And I just kept, it was like I couldn't get it, over and over and over again, you know? And I remember I almost got behind Max, but he had my ankle, and I got his arm up somehow, but his other arm was holding my ankle. I'm like, Max, if you don't let go of my effing ankle right now, I will snap your arm. You better freaking let go of it now. And then he was like, F you, I'm not practicing with you anymore then. You're a jackass. And, you know, and that was one time when, I remember totally losing my cool in practice. I just couldn't take it anymore.
I got a good one. Let me do one, and then we can have Andy go. So,
Okay.
So when I was at Ohio State, Russ Hellickson used to run these practices, and they're called shark baits. And it's basically when they put you in the middle and you've got like 7 guys rotating on you. And the whole thing is built for you to break. And I used to pride myself on trying not to break, but it's you break every time. And you know, of the 7 guys that rotate on you, you can beat every one of them, you know, if it was just one match. So this one walk-on, I'll keep him nameless.
Come on, names are more fun.
No, I'm not naming him. But I used to, you know, beat him bad in practice. And he came in and it was like the 30th takedown. And I'm getting wailed on by all my guys that rotate on me. And he comes in there and he just looks at me like he's getting ready to come after me and bull rush me. And I just stood straight up. I said, if you try to take me down, I'm going to effing kill you. and so Russ blew the whistle and says, all right, ready, wrestle. And he just stood there. And I stood there and had a 30-second break until my next go. It was terrible. I felt so bad. I apologized to him after practice. The next time, just freaking knock my head off. But anyways, yeah, that's my story.
What do you got, Andy?
Man, so I was talking about this week, Joe McFarland. We had Kyle Smith. He was a 3-time All-American for us, weight class above. He we're doing escapes, and all you had to do was get to your feet. It was like a 10-second thing. Just get to your feet. Well, he was being such a dick. He had his down leg that he's on his knee. He had that way back on my ankle, and he had his other one wrapped all the way around my far side ankle. So every time the whistle blew, he would just pinch both my ankles, and I would get up. I'd get up to my knees, and he knew the drill. He knew exactly what I was trying to do. And like real life, I would have done something else. I'm like, this stand-up thing's not working. But Joe was insistent we get to our feet. And he kept going, redo, and he can't get to his feet. Redo, and he can't get to his feet. And he's going on for like 5 minutes. And the whole room's looking at me, and I'm like, this dickhead will not stop pinching my ankles. Like, I could not take it anymore. I was like dropping the F-bombs, like, on me, not on anybody else, but it was torture. He was gaming a tiny little thing that really didn't mean much.
Uh-huh.
It was tough.
Yeah, those practices that are meant to break you. I mean, is there any other sport where they have that? Where it's like, all right, we're just gonna torture the varsity guys today and just make sure that they, feel extra not special about themselves before practice ends.
And you know what? The worst part about it, like you said, Tommy, you can kick everyone in their butts, right? But this is their day. This is the day. They've been waiting 5 months for this day. You've kicked their butts in September. It's February. Yeah. They don't got to wrestle. They're 20 pounds overweight, and they get to rotate on you. And they're going to make the most of it.
That's exactly right.
I mean, it's damn. All right, Andy, you want to get to some youth wrestling or what?
Yeah, I would love to. I love talking about youth wrestling.
So we've Tommy and I both obviously are friends with you, and we've talked about bringing you on before. But last week I saw you post a Twitter thing, and I think the essence of the question was, what makes a wrestler beginner? And then you had a little poll going on there. And so let's start with that. What made you put that one up, and what were you thinking on that one?
Well, so the background behind that one is we have Jake and I, we have our kids youth club.
Jake
and
Hrovat.
It's our second. Jake Hrovat, yeah. Jake Hrovat and I, we have our youth training center called Barwitz Elite. We have a business partner, Mike Barwitz, who's our strength coach for the Cliff King Wrestling Club. And, eventually we'll have a franchise of these gyms across the country running our program. So we had this kid, and this is the first time I'm experiencing this, and, he's wrestling in this tournament, and there was a division for novice kids who are first and second year wrestlers. And he's a second year wrestler. He's 7, and so he's the youngest of his age group, 7 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
And so their philosophy is if you win 2 novice tournaments, you automatically get put up to the open. Well, he went up to the open, and, he got manhandled. He's very immature for his, bracket, and, some of the kids are taller, bigger. So I was like, well, I'm trying to ask these people, like, well, how do you determine that, 2 wins and a novice, the kid's not novice? I'm like, it should be my job as a coach to teach him the respect of the other kids who don't know the sport. So stick what you're good with. Don't try to, the rules to me are just too complex, So, I try to limit what he's allowed to do, so that doesn't put any of the kids at risk. But, there's a lot of coaches out there that, they get this glory and, they just want their kids winning at all costs, and the kids can't control themselves. And now they're risking their opponents because if they can't control themselves, and the rules of wrestling, are rewarding for the person who's controlling the other person, and that's just not good. It's not good for the sport. It's not good for the kids involved. It's confusing to the officials. It's confusing to the parents.
Yeah.
And that's what sparked the whole question. Just because I was trying to see what the mindset is, on the Twitter world.
Yeah, and that's a huge one for me, Andy, because obviously my brother and I over here in Wisconsin, we have 2 of our own wrestling clubs, and so I've been in the youth world for 5-ish years now, and one of the hardest things for me, and it sounds like you're kind of experiencing the same thing, is there's shortcuts that we could take to make our kids good at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old that other clubs are doing, right? You can make them cut weight. You can make them do a lot of live. You could do a lot of things that are going to be good for the short term but not beneficial for the long term.
Right.
And it's tough when the parents are seeing their kids struggle because you're not giving them these shortcuts and maybe not have the success. But it's nice when some of the parents have the patience to wait for that success down the road. But it is tough for the kids to say, well, why is he winning? I want to win. I want to win that trophy. And the other kids are cutting weight, or teaching a kid a good headlock is going to be successful at 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old. But obviously, it's a point of diminishing returns as you get older. You're not going to hit the headlock nearly as much. So we struggle with that a lot. Is how do we skip those shortcuts, and how do we make our kids patient so they wait for that success in the long term? Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, I definitely see it a lot, and I see it in a lot of the other clubs. It is my second year, and I don't think I've really taught a wrestling move per se. My kids really don't know what they are. They know how to move.
Yeah.
Wrestling is a sport where you have to learn movement. And I do a very good job at teaching them that. So they just don't understand the sport. And so they'll wrestle people who do know one or two things really well, and they just have no clue how to defend against it because they've never been there.
Right.
And you could see that at the young ages. But, the funny thing, what you said about that is that also goes to the mentality of, it's the intensity and it's hard work. And that could go a long way at a youth as well. If kids are out working with their opponents, they're going to get the most out of it. And this kid that we're talking about, he was, after practice yesterday, I asked all the kids, I said, what did you learn this weekend? And it was funny because, kids they're picking it up. One kid goes, well, I learned it's not always best to shoot first. And another kid goes, well, I learned it's always not best to wait. Sometimes you have to shoot first. And I started laughing. I was like, well, you guys have to start thinking, who you're wrestling and styles. And then the one kid who was a novice, and now they're pushing him up in the open, he said, well, I learned that if you work hard, you will be able to achieve more. And, and I have to inform these guys, just because you're achieving success, he's achieving success at the novice because he's working hard. I said, what's hard for me may not be hard for you, or what's hard for you may not be hard for me. I said, so hard work's very undefinable. And so I said, really what you should be focusing on is making sure that you're just a better version of yourself, because if you keep improving, there's no excuses that you could hold back of, why you weren't successful. And, and you can obviously define your success, which is the best part about it.
Definitely. Hey, Tommy, I just thought of something. I got ADHD, so I got to get this out because I meant to get it out last week. And Andy, you might want to pitch in on this. But Tommy and I did a show a couple weeks back about anti-singlets. It was mostly Tommy, but I'm with him. I'm on board. Mm-hmm. So Tommy, last week hold on, I got his name here on my computer. Let me find it.
The guy that tweeted the picture for us?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see that. It was an email. This guy named Mike Hoover, and he's a middle school wrestling coach. And he said that he spent this year's his check for this year's middle school coaching on buying compression T-shirts and shorts for kids to wear in matches instead of singlets. His team went up by 12 people, and he had 4 kids who expressly told them last year that they would not wrestle because of the singlet are now wrestling this year.
Then we got to have him on the show.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And,
it's awesome.
Awesome. And I don't know, Andy, where do you stand on the singlet, anti-singlet spectrum? Because Tommy's pretty far
I want to get rid of it.
Okay.
So I would get rid of it at ages, right? Like, it would be hard to go with it in high school. I mean, I guess I would because that's still an age group. College, I would never change. You don't hear anybody talking about changing college. I don't think it scares people from watching. I don't know. I don't really hear it.
I think anybody that wrestles at the collegiate level is obviously past all that.
Well, but the thing is, Tommy, here's the thing. I was at North Carolina State 2 weeks ago, and Pat Popolizio, this came up somehow, the singlet thing, he must have heard our podcast. He said that the picture of Nick Gwiazdowski winning his NCAA title at NC State, which is, they have a student athlete center. It was a big picture on the wall. He said the AD told him that he must airbrush the crotch area before he puts it up. So don't think it doesn't go unnoticed at the college level.
Good for Gwiz, man.
Yeah.
But the thing is though, if you look at, track and field at the collegiate level, small, they have the same thing. Speedos, same thing. Even football pants these days. You look at some of those, linebackers and linemen. It doesn't leave much to the imagination either.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sports that wear tight stuff. There's a lot of MMA people that wear tight spandex. they just don't wear the top.
I think you could. It's really interpretive at the higher levels, but I think most people would agree at the entry level into the sport of wrestling. How could it hurt us to get rid of the singlet? It could not. I mean, there's nothing about it that would hurt our sport. It would only help. And
all the way to high school too. You could change. You can make a drastic change all the way to high school because you're going to lose kids anyways. If you look at it, if you have a community of youth wrestlers, say you have 100 at the youth, you're probably going to have 50 at the middle school, junior high. You're probably going to have 25 to 30 at the high school. That's just how it's going to go. People gravitate to different things as they get older. If you could get rid of the singlet until they really make that decision when they're older and it's a conscious decision, I think that will benefit. And, the more numbers you can increase at the younger age, the easier it's going to be to increase the high school team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So, as far as one thing that bugs me, Andy, about the youth level, let's get your thing on this, is all these bullcrap tournaments that throw nationals on the end of their name, and then all of a sudden kids get excited about it, when it's not legitimately any kind of national tournament, right? And then they're saying, oh, I'm a 7-time national champion because they went to 7 tournaments in the same season that said national in their name. What's your feeling on those? Because those drive me crazy. Literally, they drive me crazy.
So, I'm up in the air both ways on those because you have to look at, if you're running a business, you have the 80-20 principle. And, those tournaments maybe appease the 20% of the people, but those national tournaments filter down to what the state levels do. That's where it starts making it bad. If you have, the youth state tournament, which qualifies you to the nationals, stop. Maybe have a random national tournament. That's fine. But but those guys, the people who want to wrestle, there's always going to be a small market of people who want to go national tournaments and do this and be the best at the youngest age. But then there's also a huge market of people that just should stay locally, especially at certain ages, and then advance to regionally, and then advance by high school to nationally. You're always going to have the early achievers, which you can always keep those tournaments because they do serve a purpose, and people do like them and enjoy them. But when the philosophy of having those tournaments spills over to the state level and you start pushing the kids at an earlier age to compete at the higher level, that's where you're losing the retention from year to year, I think.
Yeah. I feel the same way. So let's get a little background on you. So obviously we know you're an Olympian. You went to Michigan. You're from St. Ed's, but where did you start in the youth club, and what was it like?
Well, I started really young. I was 5, and Tommy's going to know a lot of this because we go way back.
Well, Tommy's
Andy and I.
You're from Cincinnati, right, Tommy?
I'm from Columbus, the center of the state.
Stop. You were from Columbus so you're like a townie.
The whole time. I'm from Columbus, but I wrestled in Cleveland and Pittsburgh my whole life. We can get into that, why I did that. But anyways, go ahead, Andy. Andy and I have a history, Ben. We're great friends, but in the beginning, we were bitter rivalry.
No, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Andy. Go ahead.
No way.
Yeah, so I was too young to play T-ball, so my dad's friend, this acquaintance of his, had me come down to the local Y. And so at a young age, I just did local stuff. But then I started going and getting bigger. Then I went to this place called West End Y, and that's where Dan and Steve St. John wrestled, and they had a bunch of people that went on to be All-Americans. Those are the 2 biggest names. And they had a really good program, but that's when I started. And probably I would say, even if you look at the history of youth wrestling, 70s I would think was probably more local events, middle school, junior high, or just community on community, rec-type sports. But then in the 80s when, the Olympics started going globally and, events started becoming more nationally known, and then there's this trend of just wrestling, and I wasn't part of any league or anything or state association. I went to independent tournaments, and there were some years between 8 and 12 where I was doing 200 tournaments a year.
Going
to national tournaments.
Wait, you said not 200 matches. You said 200 tournaments.
No, 200 matches. 200
matches. You said 200 tournaments, and I was going to ask how that.
Sorry, 200 matches.
Okay.
200 matches.
4 tournaments a week, man. It's easy, Ben. That's
I would do 2 weight class, 2 age groups. I would go 1 tournament Friday, 1 tournament Saturday in Pennsylvania, and I wanted to do it, but but that's what my dad was exposed to, and who knows what I would have wanted to do if I was exposed to a more sane way of doing something.
But
and,
you said it was your choice to go there, those tournaments?
Yeah, I love competing. I love going places, getting away from home, and just me and my dad would be on the road, and we'd be, we just go from tournament to tournament in Pennsylvania or Southern Ohio, West Virginia. It was just a fun thing to do. But again, it's not for everybody, and I was probably the exception.
Yeah. No, I was the same way with I pushing my dad. That's kind of when I tell our parents that, about when the kids are ready to compete is I want them to want to do it. I want it to be their choice. I want them to ask you to go to the tournament. And that's how I was. It's just, Dad, let's go here. Dad, let's go there. And back then there wasn't a website, so it was like you had to read the state wrestling magazine and like see a little ad and be like, oh, hey, let's go there.
Right.
I want to hear Tommy's take on this now that he has kids himself wrestling, and because I know I'm aware of what Tommy went through as a kid, and the wrestling that he did. Obviously, we wrestled. We probably wrestled a dozen times growing up.
Yeah, let's hear the rivalry part. That's what I'm waiting for.
We wrestled for a dozen times. I mean, I don't know the record, but it was pretty much 500, Andy, wouldn't you say? Or
yeah, and the best part is there was this one time where I came back from vacation. I had a sunburn. I was fried. I was hurting, and it was at my next, like my third club that I went to. This Longword Y. The tournament was there, and this is a freestyle tournament, I believe, and we went into overtime. And in freestyle, you don't have to step on the line; you just have to be in the middle. Well, my dad's coaching me, Tommy's dad's coaching him. His dad says something. Tommy turns around, probably as the ref's blowing the whistle. He's looking at his dad. The ref blows the whistle. I run, I tackle him from behind, I get the takedown.
And the ref let it stand?
Yeah, man. I lined up in the center of the mat, so that was that.
Wow, you gotta be ready at all times. Hrovat will sneak up behind you.
Yeah, but I think Andy's question. I do have 3 boys that wrestle, and I think wrestling's the greatest sport in the world. So I want them to experience it, and I am going to, I guess, make them wrestle in an extremely recreational way for a few years, because I think it's like making your kid go to school. I mean, it's good for them. It's like eating your vegetables, but to do the sport at the level that it takes to be great, I don't think you can legislate greatness.
No,
and
100%.
I just don't think it's possible. So my drive as a parent is to expose my kids to areas where I think they might have physical or intellectual gifts or whatever it might be, and hopefully something takes a hold of them and they say, hey, I want to be great at this, because you can't manufacture greatness. Right. That's why people like watching greatness, because you can't explain it. So to me, at a very high level, my kids are fairly physically gifted. My wife also was a college athlete. So, I want them to be in sports because I want them to do things that they can be good at. But one thing I've learned is that even at a young age, I can't make them be great at a high level. I can make them be an 8-year-old kindergarten killer. But, what good is that? What does that even mean?
Yep.
So to me, it's like, get in the sport, learn about the sport, learn the merits of wrestling or the merits of athletics in a very recreational way. I'm going to make you try your hardest, but I'm not going to make you win. I'm not going to, and so to me, that's the way I like to look at it. And the other thing is from a technical perspective in the sport guys, and I think you guys are saying the same thing. My son's always going to choose down. He's never going to choose neutral. It doesn't matter if it's the freaking Tulsa, whatever. We probably won't even go to that stuff, but we're just going to try to get good at wrestling or get good at baseball or get good at playing the piano, whatever it is. The only thing that would break my heart as a parent is if my kids weren't passionate about something.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be wrestling, but I want my kids to say, I want to do this.
Yeah. This
is what I want to do. And if they do that, I'll be a happy camper. You know what I mean?
I like that phrase you use, legislate greatness, because I agree 100%. And one of the other things on that very same train of thought is, we always say, well, the lessons you learn from wrestling are the most valuable, because only a few of us are going to have professions in wrestling, right? So the determination, the self-reliance, those things. But you don't learn those things with your dad telling you to do it, and you don't learn those things with your coach telling you to do it, because that doesn't carry over, right?
Right.
I made myself go on a diet. I made myself wake up and run. I made myself do that. And that's why later in life, I understand that discipline because I've done it once and it made me successful. And I know I can do it again. And I didn't do that because anyone else was telling me to do that. I did that because I wanted to be successful.
Right.
And so those,
it's funny you say that because I use that same philosophy in how I train the Olympic athletes that I train still to this day. They have to want to do it. It's not because I'm putting them through the workout. There's parts about putting them through it, but then there's a big chunk of our training that it's on your own. You have to make up in your mind that you want to win. You have to make up in your mind that you're going to put in the work. You have to make up in your mind that you're going to improve in all areas of your life to get that Olympic medal. And if I was the one standing over them, it wouldn't mean anything to them. And so these people put in all this work, and I suggest what they should do, and I tell them why they should do it and how it's going to help them improve in this. And now they're focusing on that personally, and I don't have to watch them. I don't have to look at them. It's just something that they do consistently. And some people do it, some people don't. But the people who do it have been very successful, and they know why they're being successful, and they continue to improve on that because they love doing it, and they love having it on them. Like, this is me doing this.
Yeah, and Max and I were just talking about the other day with this one kid we had that he just made this freaking astronomical improvement. He was a under 500 JV wrestler 2 years ago, and now he's like 36-2 or something. Something ridiculous. And we were comparing him to another kid who's made improvements, but very small improvements comparatively. And it's like, well, what's the reason? They both attend practice a lot. They're both very, very regular at practice, right? They're both very regular tournaments. What's the difference? And, Max made the statement, well, look how bad that kid wanted to be good. And when he's at practice, he's 100% engaged versus being at practice and being 50% engaged or being in practice just to be there. The one kid is 100% engaged all the time because he wants it so bad. And so they're doing the same amount of work, but one kid's getting a lot more out of it because he's engaged all the way. I think that goes right along with the principle we're talking about, and exactly what
and I'm pretty sure that you guys probably have the talent code, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
And it also relates, how far those people, see themselves being in the sport is how much they're going to actually improve in the time that they could spend the equal time, but a kid who only sees himself doing it 1 or 2 years or hasn't caught it, not going to see the improvements.
Yeah. 100%.
I think I'm in the business world now, and I manage a team of 11 salespeople in the produce, and the best sales guys we have, there's nothing about what they do that has anything to do with I hope this makes Tommy happy. You know what I mean? I mean, the best sales guys, it's like I want to freaking sell produce because I want to sell produce. And those are the guys that are getting the job done. And then every now and again you're around people where it's like the only reason they come to work is because they want to make sure that they're out of harm's way. And there's just certain ways to live your life. So I think the people that really find a lot of success, it comes from within. So as a coach or as a youth coach, I think, and you guys are much more into youth coaching than I am. And I got 3 boys, but I'm not a youth coach. But I think all you can really do is facilitate and give them the best advice and kind of give them some guardrails. But what happens in between those guardrails is kind of up to them. Is that a fair statement? Or
to me,
I believe so.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree 100% also.
One of the things I'm curious with being able to talk to you guys, just because one, I know you guys are both really good businessmen, and two, you understand that the sport is a business. If you want to grow at any level, you have to treat it as a business. What would you guys do to improve the youth, to increase the number of participation in the fans later down the food chain?
That's a great question. Go ahead, Ben.
For me, I think it's hard to dictate, Andy, from a national level. I think it's got to be a grassroots thing because what I see whether I'm traveling around for camps or whether it's right here in my area is it's all about how much passion the youth coaches in that area have. It's not about how good of a wrestler they were, right? It's not about their stature in the community. It's about how passionate are they about getting kids out and helping kids get better. And for me, that's kind of what it is. And so, how do you build that passion in hundreds of youth coaches all around the country? I don't know that you can. You could possibly give them some better tools, so that the retention stays up. I think Max and I one of the things we talked about is holding some kind of big youth symposium on wrestling and bringing in some really high-level people and kind of talking about things that are working in their programs. But I think, it's really a grassroots thing, and you got to you got to have passionate people who are excited about the sport, that are telling other people how great it is and getting people to come out. And then once they get them to come out, they're able to connect well with those athletes, and so their retention stays high.
But I mean, going back to the tools, though, I mean, there are certain tools, but don't you think you can manipulate people's passion by, one, figuring out what makes them passionate, and then fueling that with the tools that you have accessible, right? Like whether it be the number of people that they can get involved, the progression of the people that they have, just a manageable way to do it. And one of my biggest gripes is that, in all of wrestling, you have the national team coach, which probably doesn't have much turnover ratio. It's the highest level in America. Then you have college coaches with less turnover ratio, and you have longer tenures. And then high school, you have some turnover ratio. It's probably lower at the better programs. And then finally at the youth, you have a lot of turnover. So what one community could have to the other, they may not have the same vision, the same understanding of what their goals are, whether it be, a specific number or retention, getting people to do different sports, or just, what the sport actually has to offer. And, maybe if those people had that understanding, instead of just using the metrics of winning and losing, which we currently have, to define success, that could be another thing, but that also, incorporates more of like, competition formats that are available in the area, because sometimes it's hard to get passionate about being in the gym for that long.
Absolutely. I mean, my mom watched me wrestle, because my three sisters are younger than me. So when I was a kid, my mom watched me wrestle probably twice a year at the most when I was a kid, because she couldn't take three, young girls to a gym all day. And I think, if I yeah, so I mean, this is such a loaded question, and we don't have enough time to cover it all. But if I had a magic wand, I would present the sport differently at the youth level. One, I really would get rid of the singlet, because I do think it's a tough entry. The sport is tough enough as it is. We can't eliminate the toughness in this sport. It's very physical, confrontational, one-on-one, self-revealing, all that stuff, and you don't want that stuff to go away. So I'd get rid of the singlet, and then my kids play soccer, and soccer is presented in such a way that you've got this hour-long game or you got an hour-long event where you practice for a half hour, and then five kids get together and they play soccer for a half hour, and then they eat some orange slices or some Capri Suns and go home. And I think that we can introduce wrestling in that way where and I'm not talking about, it's not going to make you a state champ, but it's going to keep people positive about the sport. So it's a loaded question, but I think sport presentation at the youth level could be done differently, where we could hang on to more people once they get involved.
Yeah. One thing we tried to do this year and we failed. I hate it when I fail, but he fails sometimes.
That's correct.
We only fail when you stop trying, Ben. You know that, right?
Yeah, so that's why I'm not going to stop trying. But we tried doing a youth dual league. So we have 3 mats in our academy. So we tried to get 6 teams, a K through 5 age group, 6 local teams, and we were going to do a half an hour technique presentation and then a 1 hour dual meet between the teams, right? And, kind of like, beginner rules so the ref could explain locked hands, blah, 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 And we just thought that would be a better way for a new parent, because it was beginner-based, a new parent to experience wrestling. Oh, I show up for a Saturday for an hour and a half, and then I get to go home. I don't have to spend 6 hours in a gym, right?
Right.
Well, we couldn't convince enough of the local area teams to do it. So yeah, we'll probably try again next year. We were gonna do it Saturday mornings, so maybe next year we'll do Friday nights. I don't know, but yeah, there's got like you said, a better presentation, Tommy. And I think that's for beginners, for brand new people. The singlet's hard. Spending a whole day on the weekend in the gym is hard. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things we could do, and then that we could get into pro wrestling and how that could make everything better. But Yeah, like you guys said, we don't have.
We just got to make Ben the president.
Out of time.
We got to make you the president of UWW.
I think Andy supports my run.
Andy. I would support it.
Make wrestling great again, 2020.
I like it.
Nice.
And I like a lot of the ideas, and just to hit on what you just talked about there is the time commitment. There's obviously people like us. We'll go to the World Championships, we'll go to the U.S. Open, we'll go to the NCAA Championships, and we'll spend a weekend in the gym. I'm not going to do that over and over and over again. Like a high school season to go to these tournaments or anything, or even like kids tournaments. I do it now because it's the only outlet we have, and I call it research and development. Some people call it me coaching on the weekends, but it's definitely not what I would ever see myself doing in the future. But that hour and a half compared to a day in a gym, the most valuable asset people have is their time. And when you're introducing something to the sport, you don't have to give them everything on a silver platter and say this is the whole sport. It's never ending till the Olympics. Well, what do you mean? Well, when my kid goes to the gym this weekend, all day, next weekend, and our kids have a 3-month, 4-month season in the league that they wrestle in, and then they do that middle school, junior high, and then they do that in high school, and then you add Fargo, and then that goes all the way through the summer, and then you go to college, and college is never ending. Then after college, and the international season's never ending. It's like, well, that's not going to be an easy sell to somebody. You got to tell them stages incrementally so they could fall in love with it, and then they want more. But you can't. I just don't think you give it to them all on a silver platter, and be courteous of people's times, and not just times on the weekend, but time of their life.
Yeah. Hey, one thing that we Max and I have made a change on in the state of Wisconsin that I would like to brag about, if that's okay with you two,
do it
to make it more palatable for newer people. Is Max got this idea when he was in New York and we brought it to Wisconsin, and it's kind of catching on to where it's fairly common now. Is the weigh-ins eliminated for youth tournaments? So, like our tournament last weekend in the local division, you write your weight down, and if someone wants to challenge you, you have to get on the scale. If you're over 3 pounds what you said you were, then you're disqualified.
Wow.
And how they did it in New York is then within the system you got a red flag, so then you had to show up 2 hours early before every tournament, because they do weigh-ins at like 6:37, and then wrestling doesn't start till 9. Well, now you just got to show up. You got to put in your weight. You got to show up at 8 o'clock, and then you got to go wrestle. So you're saving an hour and a half of everyone's Saturday or Sunday because they don't have to show up early to weigh in.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And it's also obviously a mindset and educating people of why you don't want to cut weight at that age, and it doesn't mean anything. And if a kid's athletic and strong, they're still going to be good 2 pounds heavier.
Mm-hmm.
That 1 pound is not going to change the outcome of what's going to happen. Another thing though I'd like to ask you guys, and this is another business question, how would you guys go about doing the competitions, or what days you would go about doing the competitions? Do you think it would just be too locally? But our sport cannibalizes itself all the time by wrestling on the same days as the high school. The high school is wrestling on the same days as the college is.
Yeah.
And, our biggest fan base and the biggest people, the last Sunday, I was at a tournament and there's 500 people, at this 500 kids at this tournament, and now you throw brothers, sisters, parents, and now you're talking, 750 to 1,000 people in this gym, on a Sunday when the Big Ten has a lot of matches on Sundays. And even more so down the road, we have our regional tournament and our state tournament the week of the NCAAs, and then the state is the week of the Olympic trials.
Well, I would say wrestling, and maybe I don't have statistics, so I can't say this factually, but in my opinion, wrestling has the worst participant to spectator ratio. I mean, we try to educate our kids and we make them watch college matches and blah blah blah. But if I go to a camp anywhere, right, and I say, dude, there's people who don't know who Jordan Burroughs is. As freaking unimaginable as that is to us, there's people who wrestle who don't know who Jordan Burroughs is.
Yeah.
It's like, do you think there's really a basketball player that doesn't know who LeBron is, or a football player who doesn't know who Peyton Manning is? I mean, it's almost unimaginable. But yeah, for whatever reasons, and I have my guesses, but we can't get too far into it. Wrestling people don't like to spectate. They like to participate. They like to have their kids wrestling, but they aren't great spectators It is cannibalizing itself because if you took those 1,000 people like you're talking about, Andy, and you took them to a college match, all of a sudden the college attendance all over the country goes way up.
Right.
Well, it doesn't even have to get to that point. And one of the things that I want to help do, and there, I'm putting together a league format with Jake Herbert, Mike Barwis, and eventually we're going to meet with one of the largest football organizations in the country to see if they want to franchise this model. But I think the main reason of youth would be to support the local community. And one of the things I think, with the state tournaments and these regions for national organizations, right? These national organizations have state regions, and you wrestle in your region. And you have all these people from all over, so you can have a place from an hour this way, an hour that way, and you get all these people coming together. It's not intimate enough. And what I would like to see at the youth level would be, let the kids at the youth wrestle actually locally, and so limit their time in the gym, but also offer up, hey, come support the local community in high school, because the end game, and this is my opinion, would be the end game is to make sure we increase. Right now, the national average for high school teams is 25. For me, I would like to say I can impact that and raise the national average by 15 wrestlers on a roster by making the youth more enjoyable and bigger, and then have them support the local high schools. And that's how you could bring dual meets back. You have these kids, and they have aspirations to go wrestle in high school. They don't have to know who Jordan Burroughs is. You have to have kids, and they don't have access to wrestling on TV. But once they get to high school, then you can introduce the next levels of the sport. And it's the same, to me, it's the same thing with the competitions it is with the media and, the competitions at the next level, and understanding what they are to make your decision if you want to move on or you don't want to move on. And I think that's also a better way to understand who to aim for when you're talking about media, when you're trying to capture these people for lifelong fans.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting, yeah, for sure.
All right, dude, we're running along. Can I ask you guys one more question before we get off the air?
Do it.
Who finishes higher at NCAAs? The Buckeyes or the Wolverines?
Man, that's a tough call.
Come on, don't be scared.
I'm a homer. I'm a homer because
Andy's a homer. He's an Ohio guy. He's going with the Buckeyes.
On why?
but so here's my thing is I know we got the upper weights at Michigan are so tough, and that's what wins at the end of the season. Obviously, they have some people that need to prove themselves. Devontae Mahomes, he's getting better. But he still has to get that where he left off before he tore his ACL. But he's capable. But once you get up and above, you got thinking Dom Adlinator, who's just been torturing people. Max Huntley's been torturing people. Adam Kuhn tortures people. And then they got a lot of good, solid lightweights. But Ohio State has more horses. But who wants to talk about the Snyder-Kuhn match? I mean, Snyder-Gliz is going to be a lot of action, but now we're talking David and Goliath. We have a 285-pound man with no body fat and a 225-pound man with no body fat as a world champion.
Yeah, it's going to be a great match.
It's like an object and an unstoppable force. Who's going to win?
It's going to be a good match.
Who you picking, Andy?
What's that?
Give me your score. Who you picking?
At the NCAAs?
Yeah, no. Kuhn versus Snyder.
Oh, I'm picking Kuhn. He's going to sit on him.
Oh, boom.
He's going to sit on him. He's going to get low. He's going to get low, and he's going to dig that underhook, and he's going to push him and push him and push him and push him and push him.
I think
then he's going to wait for the shot, and then he's going to go behind, push his head down, and go behind.
You must not be listening to our show too much, because you must have missed it all 7 times I've talked about it. Now, listen, Kuhn doesn't have a chance because Snyder kicked Tommy's butt. Let me just say that.
Oh, jeez. Why do we got to bring that up?
Okay, Tommy, who you got? Buckeyes?
I heard that one when you were in the room and he was coming back.
I'm going with Snyder because I think the thing I love about Adam Kuhn is going to cost him against Snyder. He wrestles. He's going to and Snyder is a wrestling world champion. He wrestles. And if Kuhn did wrestle, Kuhn has the body where if he had true heavyweight instincts, I think he would actually do better against Snyder. But he doesn't have heavyweight instincts. He wrestles, which will serve him well long term. But I think it's going to cost him against Snyder. But I do like
Snyder Snyder has the best mindset I've ever heard anybody in college ever talk about. Like the way we had a party after the World Championships, and the whole team was late, but Snyder and Travell were there, Jake and I were there, McDonough was there, and Andy Barth. And we got to pick Andy Barth's brain, and his wife was there as well. But we got to pick Andy Barth's brain for like 45 minutes to an hour before anyone showed up. And McDonough asked a question that blew his mind because, he has that Iowa mentality and philosophy, and Kyle Snyder just totally blew his mind in the way that he has an outlook of wrestling. And, when you have the outlook like Kyle has, that he doesn't care if he wins or loses, he just wants to go in there to see how he does. And it's his personality that always wants to win that's going to help him do it. And that's a hard person to beat. But
yep.
He's
It'll be a good match. I love Adam Kuhn. I love the way Adam Kuhn wrestles. I love him, but I'm going with Snyder. Anyways, it'll be fun.
All right. Well, that was fun. We went way over time, but it's all good. People are going to turn this on, they're going to listen to it all the way through.
That's right.
Andy, any closing thoughts for us?
No, but as long as you're here, I'm going to give myself a little plug. If anybody wants to see what I'm doing with Jake Herbert, we have a couple things. We have Double Leg Ninja, which is our apparel. You can go to doublelegninja.com. And we have Base Wrestling, which is a training system. We're creating a software. We're eventually going to have leagues, licensing, and it's going to be an all-inclusive series of progressions for youth all the way to high school, with the end goal making the high school wrestling teams bigger. Our goal is to increase communities that we work with, increase the number by 15 at the high school level, which means the youth level is going to grow, the middle school, junior high is going to grow. And if they go to basewrestling.com, put their email in, we'll send them a lot of the information that we have and get them plugged into our program.
Awesome.
Awesome, Andy. Love what you're doing for the sport, man. Good to talk to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I like hearing you guys' philosophies, and we're like talking with you guys, and it was a blast.
Sounds good. See you soon, man.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Tommy, still there?
What's up, brother?
Well, that was fun. I think this might be our longest episode yet.
It is the longest one. We went deep, but when you're talking about youth wrestling, it's kind of hard to not go deep. So
yeah, I could have talked for a lot longer.
Yeah, and we could have definitely talked a lot longer.
Yeah, you're still there. Andy, where'd you come from?
I've been there the whole time. We just ended, right?
You said bye.
No, I didn't hang out.
That's great.
All right, we're gonna say bye now, Andy.
What's that?
We'll just finish. You close out the show for us. How about that?
Do it.
Oh, you guys are still talking.
We still got our show, but we're gonna keep it rolling because makes our show
sweet, man. Hey, man, I'm gonna give you guys a plug. Tommy Rollins, he's the guy that I think is gonna help lead the sport to new heights. He's an innovator. He's got a lot of power. Ben Askren, you're the man. You got a lot of influence. You're doing a lot of great things. The T-Row Funky Show, best podcast on the internet. Jake's waiting for his rematch. Tommy, I'll give you a rematch. It'll be the T-Row versus Dynamite and Loud J. Call the Flow Commissioner. Ben, I think you might know who he is.
T-Row and Funky versus Andy
and Loud J.
All right, guys.
Man,
I'm going to close
later.
this out. Night, everybody.
Good night.
Take care, guys.
See you.
You are listening to the T-Row and Funky Show, and it is brought to you by Defense Soap. Defend what you've built. Tommy, I got to say, I tried these products. He shipped me a box. I love them. I've had, if you know me, I've had ringworm issues for a long time. So I'm looking forward to putting these in my repertoire and hoping the ringworm does not come back ever.
No doubt, Ben. And to top that off, the company was created by wrestlers. Guy Seiko wrestled at Cleveland State University. His son was an All-American in Virginia, so these people really get it. They know what the wrestling community needs. You're listening to the T-Row and Funky Show, brought to you by All Force Nutrition. Ben, I don't know a whole lot about the founders here, but I gather it's a wrestling family wrestling company up in the North Country where you're at. Tell us a little bit about All Force Nutrition.
Tommy, All Force Nutrition was started by the Zilverberg brothers out of Minnesota. They are wrestling people, and they made these supplements for wrestlers. They graduated with degrees from the University of Minnesota, and this was kind of their dream to put together some very healthy and good tasting. I've had some myself lately. supplements for wrestlers to use that fits their needs. And these products are great. I'm using them myself right now. Check out allforcenutrition.com. Made for wrestlers, by wrestlers. Go ahead and support them.